Welcome in, guys. Come on in. Come on in. Write your comments so we can begin the show that we deserve. Good morning, Mr. Patil. How are you doing? Good morning. Should we begin? It's already 8:11. We are late. We are very late. If you can hear me, just let me know and we will begin. Yeah? I've been here for 4 minutes though. Yes, bum bum bum, Mr. Rajakumar. Uh, all right then. I have something for you, Mr. Kumar, which we which we will announce. So let's begin. Bum 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 bum. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Thinker's Frequency. We're having such a good time. This is the peak of human civilization. We're working so hard, doing such good work for ourselves, our parents, our kids, our siblings, our husbands, our wives, our friends, everybody. Well, not other people's husbands and wives, I hope. And just when we thought things couldn't get any better, like they couldn't possibly get any better, well, they just did. Call it divine intervention, folks, but things just got a whole lot better. Now we have Thinker's Frequency, our daily mental workout, our daily dose of insights and analysis, which don't lead to paralysis right before we punch in. So let's continue with our journey of reading between the lines, things that are especially interesting and important in the world of business and finance. Let's go! Oh, but before we go, we gotta follow a tradition, right? You know the tradition. You know the sweet and sacred tradition of the simultaneous sip. We'll all sip something together and it'll bring us good luck, as it always does, without fail, every day. And all you need for the simultaneous sip is a copper mug, a glass, a tank, a chalice, a stein, a canteen jug, a flask, or a vessel of any kind. Pour it with your favorite liquid. I like hot water with some black pepper in it. And here we go. Beautiful. Let's do it again. Sublime. You know what the simultaneous sip says, right? You know what it says? It says that you are not alone. It says that we are in this together. Which is such a beautiful thing to say. With that out of the way, let's begin. Before we start, I need to thank Mr. Kumar. I think we have successfully, indexed all the episodes. Like 117 episodes, Mr. Kumar has single-handedly, going out of his way, indexed 118 episodes. So you can go back any episode in time and you'll see what we talked about thanks to Mr. Kumar's efforts. Now, this is extraordinary. This is Herculean, essentially. And this is something to be praised, by everybody, because everybody's going to benefit. All the community members, they're already benefiting, actually. So I get messages where they say, oh, this is great, thanks to Mr. Kumar, and so on and so forth. So we need to thank Mr. Kumar, and I need to thank Mr. Kumar, and I have a gift for Mr. Kumar, which is Scott Adams Sir's How to Fail at Almost Anything, Everything, and Still Win Big, right? That is for Mr. Kumar. Beautiful book, the best introduction to Mr. Scott Adams, because it's because of him that we have the show, right? So that book goes to Mr. Kumar. So cheers to Mr. Kumar. I'll take your address separately. Thank you so much. With that out of the way, let's begin. I'll just have to close it's hurting my eyes. One second. Yeah, so now I'm better. Thank you so much. So, a lot happening in US. A lot happening in US. If you've noticed, the speech issue, Jimmy Kimmel getting cancelled. So Jimmy Kimmel actually spoke something about Mr. Charlie Kirk's assassination, rest in peace, where he said that the person who killed Mr. Charlie Kirk was a MAGA Republican. He was a conservative, right? And he said that these people are trying to turn it on us, on the left, that is. Now that got him fired from Disney, who owns the network which he uses, which has hired him. So they put him off the shelf, right? Now that led to a free speech issue on the side of the left, the US left, saying that this is against free speech, right? Now, nobody buys that argument on the right, of course, right? Because free speech, yeah, it curtails free speech, they say, but he was lying, is also what they say, right? Now, lies, truth, this is all very subjective. Of course, there's a factual element to it, so which you can't deny. But right has turned it into a what about thing, right? What about Trump getting deplatformed from Twitter while he was actually asking the crowd to be peaceful on January 6th? What about people getting cancelled? What about Scott Adams getting cancelled? What about everybody just getting cancelled, right? Scott Adams, sir. Uh, so they are saying that this is essentially a rebound of what happened to the right, even when they didn't lie. Now, this particular person, uh, you know, this particular person essentially lied about somebody's assassination. And what's more baffling is that instead of speaking about somebody's assassination, they are more outraged about somebody's lies and somebody getting cancelled because of lies, right? So, what right is saying is that you should be more outraged about this assassination than you're about cancellation of a comedian who lied, right? Now, this is not important, okay? Whatever I said, this was just the context. What's important is what happens now. So, for a very long time, the right, the American right, didn't have a platform. Twitter was extremely left. It actively banned people, silenced people. So was YouTube, so was Google, so was Facebook, right? All of these people literally banned. And then entire media landscape was totally left, right? CNN, NBC, CBC, uh, all of these networks were left. Only Fox News, what right has was just Fox News and Breitbart, okay? But now it is shifting. So now, until now, the right was essentially an underdog in the story of American politics, right? They didn't have the media muscle, and they didn't have the political muscle. But now they have the political muscle, of course, and they also have the media muscle. Why? Because Twitter got bought by Mr. Musk. That changed everything, right? That was the first, basically the most important event. Well, that happened. It unleashed a lot of people, uh, which otherwise didn't say anything or couldn't say anything because they were silent. And then the podcasting world, essentially, right? That also shifted to right. So all the major podcasters, and this is new media. So podcasting is essentially new media. So podcasting is totally right. There are no lefty podcasters, uh, however you can say that, right? Now this is the changing media landscape where they got a platform, they got a podcast. Earlier, when Trump got deplatformed, he didn't have anything, so he had to create a social network of his own, the Truth Social thing, right? But then Twitter came, podcasters all went right, and then now even the CBC thing is gonna be bought by Ellison's, right? The David Ellison, Larry Ellison's son, Mr. Larry Ellison's son. Now he's also kind of a Republican guy. So even the old media is shifting towards right. Okay. Now when old media shifts towards right, podcasting already in right's favor. Right also having some sort of platforms for itself where it can speak openly, right? Where it's not censored, at least. What happens when right shifts from uh, an underdog to let's say, what happens when it shifts from a David to a Goliath? Okay. Now when that happens, how do you think would Democrats respond to that? Like the lefties respond to that? And how probable is that there's gonna be some sort of, you know, a civil unrest kind of a situation in America? It becomes very, very probable because left has a history of very, very organized protests, right, which turn violent. Black Lives Matters, Antifa, and all of these things, they really go out all guns blazing, right? And then the only political leaders who've been assassinated are from the right in the recent past. Like Trump has had 2 assassination attempts, maybe 3. Mr. Kirk was assassinated already, and so on and so forth. So what happens if this unrest takes a peak? Because left thinks, always has thought of right as fascists, right? They've been saying that American right is fascism, right? The whole Hitlerization of things. What happens when they actually come in a position where they could be fascists? Right? Now, that is a very weird situation. And how that changes for India is also something that you've got to look for. Now, what happens if US political system goes to the toilet, right? Uh, well, the gold prices go up. That's one. But anyway, this is a very complicated matter, and it's going to have geopolitical ramifications because what happens there happens in India almost in parallel. So everything happens almost in parallel. Well, they had BLM, right after we had our own Shaheen Bagh or whatever. So there is a serious, uh, uh, let's say, collinearity in both of these geopolitical ecosystems. Speaking of US has essentially screwed IT. Did you hear? Just 2 hours ago, or maybe a few hours ago, the H-1B visa is gonna be $100,000, up from maybe $1,000, whatever it costs right now. It costs nothing almost, right? It's gonna be $100,000 for the H-1B visa to actually take place. What do you think happens to the IT industry now? What do you think happens to the IT industry when they figure out, oh, H1B visa will now take like 80 lakh, 90 lakh rupees, right? What happens to the model? Because the biggest beneficiary of the H1B were Indians, and specifically Indian outsourcing, right? It's gonna be a very, very big deal. It's gonna be huge. It's gonna be a big, big problem, right? Uh, Now, what did I tell you about Indian IT? Now, these people, analysts, just a couple of days ago, I guess, we discussed that these analysts were giving buy calls on Indian IT, saying that it's bottoming out. Indian IT's troubles are bottoming out, and now it might be a good time to actually look at those stocks. And I said that these people are, not counting the all the problems that exist with the IT play. It's not just tariff, although it's tariff related. It's not just tariff. IT has many problems which are gonna unfold in ways we don't know. Now, what do you think happens to those stocks, right? Now, this why I'm saying this is because everybody makes money in a bull market, and currently India is in a bull market. But a very good way to make money is to not lose money. And the way to not lose money is to be very, very careful and very aware of how things are unfolding, right? And we saw this coming. So I hope you saw this coming. And if you saw this coming, congratulations, right? Speaking of seeing things coming, Urban Clap essentially a really successful IPO. So even after the bump of 60%, 70%, whatever that bump was, the IPO pop, the stock only rose. It's risen about 12% even after the pop. So the company was essentially $1.7 billion at IPO, and now it's over $3 billion, 24,000 crores. That's about $3 billion. So it's over $3 billion. The price has almost doubled, right? Now, if you remember, I wrote a very big article saying that Urban Club company has essentially shown a lot of class and grace when it comes to their IPO. They could have priced their IPO at $2.5 billion. I told you, I wrote in that article, by the way, because that would have taken acceptance from the market too, right? But they chose to do the better thing. They actually priced it very fair so that a retail investor, the average Akash, doesn't get screwed. As is the case with Lenskart with their $10 billion valuation. Now those guys should be valued at 3.5 max, right? But they went for a $10 billion valuation, and they'll end up screwing retailers. I'm sorry, retail investors, but not UC. So we saw a lot of things coming, and we've developed a knack for looking into the future. All we got to do is build up on this skill, because as their margin call dialogue says, right? You know how I make the big bucks? It's because I know what the music is gonna be a day, a week, a month from now. A very good dialogue. Mr. Rajakumar writes, I wasn't expecting this. Thanks so much, Nishant. Needs your sign on the book. Oh no, no sign, but I'll write you a very sweet note straight from the heart. Mr. Rajakumar also says, between episodes 2029 are the REITs to be indexed. I'll do it within 1-2 days. It's almost indexed. Yeah, that's what even in 2029, some episodes are indexed 21, 20. So maybe a few episodes are left, but thank you so much, Mr. Kumar. This is great. This is amazing. This is beautiful. Moving on from the H1B, China has welcomed TikTok deal, and China has asked US to not impose unilateral tariffs. Now, as China welcomed the TikTok deal, the details are going to be shared in the future, right? US blocked its $400 million supply to Taiwan, some defense supply. So did US just trade Taiwan for TikTok? We don't know. But very interesting times. Very interesting times. Speaking of interesting times, geopolitically relevant, Pak-Saudi Defense Pact is basically, it means that the nuclear program will be available to Saudi Arabia as well, right? Because Pak is a nuclear power, Saudi Arabia is not. And this defense pact says an attack on Pakistan is attack on Saudi Arabia, and an attack on Saudi Arabia is an attack on Pakistan, which means essentially that all the capabilities, nuclear capabilities Pakistan has, they'll be available to Saudi Arabia. Now this has led to a lot of action, or let's say a lot of unrest with Israel, because right now in the Middle East, only Israel is the nuclear enabled power, right, so to speak. Now, if this particular thing bothers Israel, do you think Israel is gonna come at Pakistan and its nuclear bases, right? What if Israel actually enters into a conflict with Pakistan and its nuclear bases? How is that gonna work out? Because Israel has a lot of influence in US, with US, on US. And US has been the counterweight for India, because US has been supporting Pakistan for a very long time. Now, if Pakistan shares its nuclear arsenal with Saudi Arabia, that puts Israel into a direct existential threat, right? If Israel gets into it, what do you think is going to happen to Pakistan's nuclear arsenal? And will India get involved into this conflict? Is a very, very big question. So this has particularly shaken everybody. It's a big news. It's huge. How India responds to this and how Israel responds to this. India is a pretty, shouldn't say that, but a timid country. I mean, we are very peace-loving people. Let's say that. It's a polite way to say that. We don't want to fight. But Israel really thinks of these things very, very carefully, right? So how would the Jewish nation think about this particular deal is something that we should all be worried about. Or let's say what's the best way to worry about this? Stock up on gold, man. Stock up on gold. Moving on, EU has brought forward a ban on Russian LNG import under POTUS pressure. So Mr. Donald Trump has been pressurizing EU to not buy Russian LNG exports, right? And EU is moving forward to that. Prohibition to start from January 1, 2027. instead of end of December. Needs nod from all nations. So they're going to stop buying Russian LNG from January 2027. Uh, till then, they'll probably make arrangements and make redundancies and replacements and so on and so forth. So Russia still has a lot of time to wage the war. Let's see what happens there. Uh, Google was looking at uh, it had been looking at a lot of antitrust issues in EU, European Union, right? And there was a $3.5 billion fine on Google ad business. And what people were thinking was that Google will essentially have to sell its ad unit, right? Uh, as an antitrust thing, what do? You essentially sell your ad unit. uh, you break the company up so it sorts of loses the monopoly gets lost, right? Now Google has refused to do that. It's not gonna pair its entire business as was thought, or as was being considered at least, but it's gonna lose some entities. So the data says Google will meet the European Union's deadline to propose changes to its advertising technology business, but won't include the full breakup the EU have previously pushed for. The offer will avoid complete sale of Google's ad manager. The AdX exchange the double kick for publishers, according uh, the filling deadline could still slip. So they're not going to sell the ad manager business essentially, which was the idea, but something is going to happen and something huge. So let's look at that. Very important. Just to its advertising technology. Oh, I'm so sorry about that. But won't include the full breakup. Yeah. So that was Google. Moving on. A very good news for India. Japanese RNI. RNI is a ratings agency, Japanese. It has also upgraded India's sovereign rating from triple B negative to triple B. So if you remember, the first one to do it was, who was the first one to do it? Was it S&P? S&P was the first ratings agency to essentially upgrade India, right? Then Fitch's didn't do that, I guess. But then RNI has done that. What that means is it's going to be very good news for India. Indian sovereign bonds are going to get priced better. Companies will have easier access to foreign capital through bonds. Bond prices will go down. The new bond prices will be cheaper. The yields will be up, and yeah. So that's what's getting looked at. Very interesting. Japan is also looking at having its first female prime minister, which is supposed to be a big deal because Japan is a pretty patriarchal country, right? So no finance minister, no prime minister, no governor has been female. So that could be a big change. Uh, Speaking of things that don't change, China. Huawei has co-developed a DeepSeek model with censorship feature. Huawei has developed a model which won't answer politically sensitive questions, right? And it's developed this in partnership with DeepSeek. Now this aligns to Chinese ecosystem and how China views these technologies, how China has molded the internet to preserve its whatever you can call it, social fabric, communist structure or whatnot. But here's the question: if you remove politics or political sensitivities, doesn't AI become much simpler to build? I'll say that again. If you remove politics or political sensitivities, doesn't AI become much simpler to make? Now, why I say that is because most complicated cases, or let's say most complicated opinions or most complicated questions, do not arise in the world of business, right? They do not arise in the world of finance, economics. They arise in the world of politics, because politics is that play where two movies play on one screen. So there's just one movie. There's just one screen. One event is happening, and there are 5 different way people view that same event, same event, right? Which makes it very complicated for LLMs to actually balance, right? Political correctness is a huge problem, and politics is uh, the fulcrum of those conversations, right? That's why it's called politically correct. So my question is, if Huawei has developed DeepSeek's model and China is looking at creating models which don't talk about politics, doesn't that make AI much easier to build and manage and improve? It just takes the complications away. Why we are able to have such collegial discussions and productive discussions and positive discussions is because we don't discuss politics at all, right? uh, Now, if we don't discuss politics, that's why we don't indulge in useless fights, right? Whatever we talk about, it's basically business, it's finance, it's economics, right? That's why the conversations are simpler. The conversations become very complicated as soon as politics enters the room, right? So maybe China is not just creating better AI, it's actually going to be cheaper to build these models. Moving on. OpenAI is looking at hardware play. It's signing a pact with Apple supplier for consumer device, some context monitoring, and so on and so forth. OpenAI going hardware. They also had tied up with Johnny Ive, Mr. Johnny Ive, the founder, not the founder, but the chief designer, the iconic designer of Apple, right? So this is a continuing story. Every story is a continuing story. Uh, that's what you've got to realize. Moving on. Now, what's very important with, let's say, uh, what's happening with India and US. Now, India and US are showing very interesting developments, right? On one side, you have US warming up to India. US basically going back to its rhetorical focus on China instead of India. US looking at China as the real threat instead of India. On the other hand, you have these non-tariff barriers which are coming into play. And in the midst of all of this, Mr. Goyal is supposed to meet Howard Lutnick, the real asshole, right? Now, Mr. Goyal is going to visit. So imagine how complicated that decision is or that conversation is, right? Because there's $100 billion trade partnership. And so many people depend on this negotiation, right? Let's say if India kowtows to, or let's say just gives into the demands and says, okay, we'll allow some foreign farm exports. Like lakhs and lakhs of people just straight away go out of business, right? What happens then? So that's what's happening. New Delhi has termed discussions between two sides as positive. Everything is positive right now. This new news is yet to appear. It's yet to take steam in India. The whole H1B thing. But other than that, the trade talks are going on. India is also buying big investments, getting big investments from UAE. We talked about how infrastructure was essentially getting looked at. We were looking to tying up with Australia to make their homes, which could be a $500 billion projects, for the financing of which we were looking at UAE. While we were looking at UAE, we also, and soon after that discussion was happening, India actually went to UAE and signed a $100 billion pact, non-crude, non-petroleum thing. So it's amazing. It's incredible what's happening with India and UAE. UAE has a lot of money. UAE, पैसा बहुत है, प्यार चाहिए उनको, right? So India could actually give them a lot of प्यार. Let's see what happens there. Moving on. Speaking of infrastructure, big ships are getting the infrastructure tag, and that will lead to easy funding. Now, big ships, the government on Friday gave infrastructure status to large ships, bolstering the prospect of easier and cheaper financing for shipbuilding in India. Now, cheaper financing, that is essentially you can take loans, you have collaterals, infrastructure is a priority sector, and because it's a priority sector, it gets better lending, or let's say borrowing norms. It gets favorable financing norms. all those financing norms are going to come to shipbuilding now. Now, what did I tell you about defense industry? And when I said defense industry also means shipbuilding, because shipbuilding is a very big part of the defense play, right? I told you that India is going to be looking at this industry in a very, very big way, and it's going to support this industry because it's of national relevance, it's national security relevance, it's national manufacturing relevance, it's a very big job magnet. So shipbuilding, so all the defense stocks that you have, like Cochin Shipyard, Mascot Dock, GRSC, Garden Reach shipbuilders and engineers, and so on and so forth. All of these stocks are going to benefit because of what's going to happen in shipbuilding. And this is an ongoing development. So we've been talking about this for 117 days now. Another one in that area. So that's beautiful, right? That's amazing. Adani stocks got lifted up on Friday. Some stocks went up 6%, some stocks 14% because SEBI verdict came on. So no surprise, nobody should have been surprised. Least of all viewers of Thinkers Frequency. Moving on. Early Diwali cheer, retailers, Qcom stores packed with lower priced FMCG stocks. 22nd September, just 2 days from now, prices are gonna fall, and that determines everything that's gonna happen with the Indian economy, right? How Indian consumers respond to that particular play is gonna determine where we are going as a country, essentially. It's gonna determine what happens to us for our investments are considered. Private capex, what happens everywhere. It all depends on what happens, like, in a couple of days, starting from a couple of days. It's not just one sector, electronics, heavy goods. No, it's everywhere. Textile, clothing, 2,500 rupee retail clothing item will have 5% GST, right? Instead of 12%. Above 2,500 will be 18%. So what these people are saying is that we might not have to discount. We'll basically save money, because the government, the GST rationalization will prove to be a discount, right? So that's happening. Mahindra, by the way, has raised up its discount. It's giving like 2.5 lakh rupee worth discount on cars. So 2 lakh, 2.5 lakhs. They're just going all guns blazing as far as discounting is considered on their cars. It's just extraordinary what's happening. It should definitely lead to something. Because if it doesn't lead to anything, there's nothing more that you can do, right? So companies are tapping staffing firms. We've talked about flexi firms, temporary workforce going up because of whatever is happening. So this is all huge. This is all great. Big discounts from apparel, footwear brands. iPhone, by the way, had a very big debut. I don't know why people go to stores and wait in lines to buy an iPhone. I mean, they could just order it, right? But must be some charm value. Moving on. Coming up in Dhulera, country homes for fab expats. So we've talked about this. Why is manufacturing so important? Right? Why is manufacturing so important? Because manufacturing leads to a lot of second order effects. So Dhulera, has a facility. Now, what these companies are doing, Japanese companies, Taiwanese companies, they are making housing corridors for employees working on this Tata chip plant. Housing corridors, like with their culture, with their infrastructure requirements, with their standards. So they're going to be making housing units across that Dholera plant. Now, how do you think that affects everything that happens in the city, right? And all for one plant. That's just one. So, the trick to read about these things is most of the world essentially just looks at first order effects, right? That something happened, they started making a plant, they had a plant, and now that plant is going to lead to some production, and that's it, right? That's where people stop thinking about things. The world runs on second and third order effects, right? It's not just the plant. Let's say if they make the chip, they'll have to acquire so many things, right? chemicals industry, precision tools industry, metals, right, and so on and so forth. And it's not just that. There's going to be a lot of intelligence which will need to be imported, a little intelligence which will have to be trained, right? When you're bringing that intelligence to India, they'll have to live. Now, when they come in India, they'll experience Indian hospitality or Indian, they'll be building their infrastructure as per their standards, which will expose Indians to some level of city planning or some level of infrastructure that they're not used to, right? Now, when they are exposed to that, many Indians are going to be working in that area. Now, some people are going to work in that factory, and they're going to be entrepreneurial. So they'll work in that factory for 6 months, 1 year, 2 year, and then they're going to start a new company. When they start a new company, they're going to hire people. So the world runs on second and third order effects, but most people in the world only look at the first order effects, and that's why people don't understand what's going on, right? That's why people say that, oh, US is foolish to actually import manufacturing, bring steel manufacturing in US, or let's say manufacturing everything in US is a bad idea. It's going to lead to price rise, and it's going to be cheap, or very expensive to make things in US. So make in America is a bad plan. They have no idea. They have no idea. That's just a very, very dumb take to look at things. Everything has ripple effects, and you've got to judge things by their ripple effects, right? And if those ripple effects actually are very consequential, that's when you find out that, oh, this thing is pretty good. So that's what's happening. Tokyo Electron, Taiwan's PSMC are said to be amongst those considering exclusive housing facilities for their expat employees, right? So a lot of companies banking on the proposed Mumbai Ahmedabad bullet train to help allow employees enjoy Mumbai. Gujarat has specifically allocated land for the purpose of housing and recreation for expat employees. So this is huge. This is very, very huge. And not just this, whatever it leads to, it's going to be very huge, right? Moving on. Fewer IIT IIM grads launching startups this year. The number is very, they said the decline is very clear. What is the decline? Yeah. Only 36 startups have been founded by graduates from these premium institutions in 2025 to date, compared to 236 in 2024 and 383 in 2023. So 383, 236, it's already a decline. But in this year, it's 36 startups that have come out from IIT and IIM. Why do you think this is happening? Can you guess why this is happening? Can you guess why this is happening? I'll just take a sip. Okay. I hope you've been able to. The delay has you know. Can you guess why this is happening? So I'll say that it's happening because people are smart, of course. Decline in placements. Oh, no, 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 no. Mr. Bhandekar, like, you're absolutely on the opposite end of the spectrum. So what's happening is a lot of decline in placement should actually lead to more entrepreneurship, right? So you're wrong, respectfully. What happens is when a lot of startups have grown to an extent that they've grown in India, and a lot of those startups are very well funded, there's a lot of VC money flowing into companies, right? And when that money goes in such depth and in such breadth, a lot of these people, the creme de la creme of the country, which is IITs and IIMs, these people get very, very well paying jobs. Okay. So when they get such well paying jobs, like crores of rupees getting thrown at people, a fresher getting like 40 lakhs, 50 lakhs, and so on and so forth, right? When these people from creme de la creme institutes make crores of rupees, or let's say 50 lakh, 40 lakh rupees right out of they're going to college, and this is the top of the tree talent, right? Their incentive to actually take the plunge into the startup scene where money is tight, Starting a startup is not the way to make money, right? It's not easy money and very uncertain. The incentive for these people to actually start up goes off the cliff. So there is no incentive for an IIT Delhi guy or an IIT Bombay guy who doesn't have access to capital. I mean, if somebody is willing to fund him, sure, at an idea stage. But if he doesn't have an idea, if he doesn't have money, right? But he's gonna get a job offer which is gonna be crazy. So why would he actually take the risk? So nobody should be surprised here. It's yet again very predictable for somebody who's learning to analyze these things, right? Moving on. And the experts, what they're saying is decline temporary as tighter funding, macro uncertainties taking toll. That's not the reason. Renaissance tape out 3 nanometer chips. Japanese embedded semiconductor solutions company Renaissance Electronics has taped out, finalized, and submitted the design to their plant. A 3 nm chip designed by its Noida and Bangalore teams. So taping out means giving it to the foundry, giving it to the manufacturer. So if they've designed and processed this 5 nm chip, which is said to be globally relevant. So this has happened from India semiconductor mission, leading to real outcomes now. It's gonna come out soon. Moving on. A lot of political stuff which we best not discuss, right? Government is looking at illegal immigration. Illegal immigration is becoming a talking point even in India. Until now, that it was a hush-hush thing that you couldn't really say it, right? Despite whatever was happening, India didn't talk about this. But since the global climate has changed so much, India is also talking about illegal immigration very, very loudly. And they're saying that they're going to take steps to make sure that this goes out. Moving on, a reality services company TCC Concept is buying 100% stake in Pepperfry. Now you might have heard of Pepperfry. It was a furniture retailer. Its founder unfortunately passed away a couple of years ago. Rest in peace. But Pepperfry is amongst the companies which started while Urban Ladder was going on, and none of this worked. So Urban Ladder was it was a fire sale, and Pepperfry is getting bought by a company which is much smaller than it in size. So Pepperfry made a revenue of 180 crores or something at a loss of 117 crores. It's getting acquired by a company which has a revenue of 80 crores and a net of 40 crores. So how is this happening? How is TCC actually being able to buy Pepperfry? Right? This is very weird. Pepperfry was last valued at $350 million. Now, how is TCC, which is an 80 crore revenue company, cannot be valued more than 200 million in any way whatsoever, right? So it's a 10 million revenue company. Even if you give a 20 revenue multiple, 200 million, that's it, right? How is a $200 million company buying a $300 million company? Especially when both of them are not making enough money. So the answer is that Pepperfry is no longer a $300 million company, right? It's essentially a fire sale. Now, how steep is the decline in Pepperfry's valuation is a question we must ask ourselves. Is it getting just given away for free because the company is losing a lot of money and company hasn't figured out a way to do anything? Is it an LBO, leverage buyout? The problem with leverage buyouts is that you pay off the interest of a leverage buyout by the company's cash flow, the company that you're acquiring. That's the structure of a leverage buyout, right? Now, Pepperfry isn't making any money. So LBO goes out of the way. You cannot structure an LBO for TCC Concept to be buying Pepperfry, right? What's possible is that Pepperfry gets an equity of TCC. So it becomes a reverse thing where Pepperfry gets valued at 50 million and then it gets, let's say, 25% of TCC, which supposedly is at 200 million. So it's a share swap kind of a deal. But I'm very curious to know how these people are structuring this deal, because there's nothing on it yet. So they say they've signed a term sheet. I want to see that term sheet. How are you buying this company? And how are you valuing this company? And where did you get the money from? You don't have the money. So what's going on here is a very, very good question. Very good question, but nobody's asking right now. Everybody's looking at the news, right? Moving on. Fintech firms JAR's operating revenue has surged ninefold in FY25. That's because JAR has started gold as a thing, right? So buying gold and so on and so forth. It has basically come in the lines of India Gold and also lots of platforms. Well, that doesn't fail. It can't fail. So revenue is up. That shouldn't be surprise to any. Speaking of payment companies, or let's say fintech companies, PhonePe is now a payment aggregator. PhonePe is going to be a competitor to Razorpay. PhonePe is going to be a competitor to all the payment aggregators. It's gotten RBI's norm to be a payment aggregator. Now, why is PhonePe looking at these businesses all of a sudden, right? It's not all of a sudden. The PhonePe as a company has been looking at this business for a very long time. What's interesting is that all of these developments are happening very quickly and very nicely because PhonePe is going public. PhonePe is going to go public soon. And if you look at PhonePe, it's perhaps the most interesting employee story, right? So PhonePe was a company started by Mr. Sameer Nigam. That company got fully acquired by Flipkart. Flipkart got acquired by Walmart. Walmart spun off PhonePe. And Walmart is now, PhonePe is going to be essentially IPOing at, if that's a word, by itself. So it's just amazing what Mr. Sameer Nigam and his co-founder, I'm forgetting his name, I'm sorry, they've achieved as employees, right? Perhaps the most entrepreneurial, entrepreneurs turned employees turned entrepreneurs. It's just amazing. The journey is extraordinary. Suburban land demand soars amid rising costs in cities. So places like Khopoli, Pune, in Maharashtra, right? Nagaon, Hapur in NCR, Hapur, Bulandshahr, Khopoli, Karjat in Maharashtra, Chikkabalapur and Chinnapatna in Karnataka. These places are going up. Now this is a very good news. I've always said the way to live a good life in India is to avoid the Malthusian trap. The only way India can flourish is by avoiding the Malthusian trap. India really desperately needs all the investments to start going into tier 2, tier 3 cities, right? Because our main cities, our metropolitans are clogged. They're pieces of shit, right? They're proper shitholes. This is a big problem. Delhi has become unlivable, right? Gurgaon is no different. Bangalore, I've heard similar things. Mumbai is a beautiful place. I love it, but has problems, a lot of them. Majorly infrastructural issues. So this is a very good news, and this, I hope more of this happens, right? Moving on. India leads global flexible office space maturity index. That's okay. A lot of flexible office spaces working out in India. Retail Inc. looks, we've talked about this. Tax goodies lift festive mood. Retail is hiring people. Apple, we've talked about that. Tax cuts, sure. Supreme Court has asked the government to bring finality to the Voda Idea issue. So Vodafone Idea is a perpetual dumpster fire truck, right? And it became even more inflamed because government actually placed a 9,000 crore rupee demand on it, AGR due. Now the government is like 49% shareholder in Vodafone India, right? It had bought Vodafone share at more expensive price, at a price more expensive than what was listed. Why is the Department of Telecom asking for this money? So the government is trying to save Vodafone, and the same government, a different branch of it, is trying to screw Vodafone. Why don't these government departments just talk amongst themselves and stop with this charade, right? So eventually, what's going to happen is that DOT is going to look at this and say that, oh, some adjustments are going to happen and so on and so forth. Because the government knows, the government owns Vodafone. The government is also asking money from Vodafone, and the court is saying, why don't you guys just talk amongst yourselves, right? Very interesting case. I blame. You know who I blame for Vodafone's crisis? I've talked a lot about this, and Mr. Patil knows it. He remembers it. But does anybody else know who's responsible for the crisis of Vodafone? Who do you think is actually responsible for all the problems that Vodafone is going through right now? Can you think of the real root cause for Vodafone's problems? My God, I don't know what has happened to my throat, man. Mr. Tushar Tiwari was so bored, he didn't even bother to write the full name, but he's right. He says AB. AB is Abhishek Bachchan. I blame Abhishek Bachchan for Vodafone's. I mean, you can't help but blame the guy, right? I mean, come on, man. What an idea, Sergi. Whose idea was it to bring Abhishek Bachchan? Anyway, moving on. Bitumen demand is up 47% in August. Do you know why bitumen is used? Bitumen is the core component which goes into making of roads. So whenever we are making roads, we use a lot of bitumen. Now bitumen demand had fallen in the past few months because of rains. Because it was raining, road construction had come down. Because road construction had come down, uh, you know, uh, no bitumen was getting used. The demand was down. But now it's up back again, 47% in August. And as monsoon essentially recedes, right, the road construction will be up, and the road construction targets are going up, which means bitumen's demand is gonna be going up in the coming future. That is an interesting news if you are a bitumen trader, or if you want to trade in a stock which has something to do with bitumen. But I don't, so I can't say anything more. Bitumen accounts for about 3.5% of the total volume of refined products consumed in the country. 3.5%, right? So road activity going up. Moving on. Vari Energies has picked up 76% in smart electric meters. Race Mosa for 53 crores. We talked about smart meters. Do you remember how the grids were looking at getting intelligent? So India was essentially looking at smart meters very, very seriously. What was the cause they were looking at smart meters? Do you remember the cause why the government was actually looking at smart meters very, very delicately? I talked about this. We talked about this in depth. It was a pressing issue. The government has done a lot in that direction. One of the moves was LED, the other moves was AC. What was the reason why the government was essentially going up the smart meter paradigm? Can you think of it? This is an important question. So if you don't remember, I'm happy to remind you that it was electricity usage, its leakage and consumption. So to plug the leakage from the grid, the government, the authorities were essentially looking at upping the whole flow. It was not just electric meters; it was also a lot of other components which they were looking at improving, so the leakage problem could be solved, right? Because smart meters essentially help a lot as far as the whole overseeing of the flow is considered, right? So that is one of the things that was going on, and now you see PE action, so it shouldn't be surprising. Moving on. India seeks big investments from UAE. We've talked about that. Registrars may get power to verify land records before deals. So that's something government has been talking about, digitization of land records. 99.3% or 99.8% or something of land records have been digitized. Now, to curtail problems as far as whole registration, verification of land is considered, they're bringing in registrars with the power to verify land. Proposal expected to provide an extra layer of comfort to retail buyers and investors. What to expect from the new bill? The new bill enabling states to allow scrutiny of records, paperless registration, electronic presentation, digital record, mandatory registration of power of attorney, uh, tougher for officers to deny registration, and so on and so on. So, land transactions happening, value touching 30,000 crores in H1. So, a lot of people have said, what are the two things that are holding India back? What are the two things that are holding India back? I'm not talking about private capex and consumption. I'm talking about the ease of business. So, what do you think are the two things that are holding India back as far as uh, ease of doing business is considered? So, we have less time. I'll have to say it. The answer is number one, land problems, and the other was labor problems. So, land and labor reforms have been the two key areas where the government is trying to reform itself so it can actually go forward and bring some real change on the ground, on the land, right? So, it's one of those moves. Uh, PM Modi is holding a meet on September 23rd to help create domestic Big Four. So we've talked about this. The government has talked about this. They've been saying that Big Four, that is PwC, Deloitte, KPMG, and EY, right? They make a lot of money. They had like revenues of 50,000 crores in a year, right? That was huge. So they say that India should have its own Big Four. And with that, that's obviously a very good news for GT. That's very good news for all the local firms that exist in that game. Creation of domestic audit and consulting firm comparable to the so-called Big Four. The meeting to be chaired by Shaktikant Das, the ex-governor, Mr. Das, signals government's concerted move to enable domestic firms scale up and grab a slice of the $240 billion global auditing and consultancy market. Now, this is a huge market. Globally, it's a huge market. And India has no representation in that market. Even though India is majorly a services country, right? India is a very rich country as far as this whole CA services is considered. We have a very active pool. Nothing has happened in the global stage, and that's what the government is trying to do. Small firms lose to bigger ones in grabbing lucrative cases, right? Revenue of Big Four pegged at 45,000 crores. That was close. I pegged it at 50,000 crores. So 45,000 crores in FY25. I think it will go up to 50,000 crores. So let's see what happens. Tariff uncertainty may weigh on freight rates. Well, obviously. Moving on. Income Tax Department has detected 700 crore in fraudulent exception cases. God damn it. Moving on. Very interestingly, Meta has gotten into power trading as AI sends demand soaring. So AI companies are doing very weird things. They're setting up their nuclear reactors. Now this company Meta is getting into trading power, right? Actual power exchange game, is pushing to break into the wholesale power trading business so it can better manage the massive electricity needs of its data centers. Now, this is obviously huge. Meta applied to the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission through a subsidiary, Atom Energy, formed to act as a power marketer. Now, this is huge. Meta also had, uh, uh, a demo day for its glasses, which went poorly. It didn't work. The product, the demo, essentially had a very embarrassing demo. But everybody says that the time for smartphones is out. Do you think so? Do you think smartphones are going to get replaced by AI led glasses, like Terminator type glasses, where a person is looking at somebody and they're saying, can you identify this person, and so on and so forth? Is it possible that smartphones get replaced. Now, I was talking to a very good entrepreneur last night, and he said that, man, all the sci fi movies I've watched ever, they never had a phone, right? It was always audio controlled and visually seen, right? So, would smartphones go fade into the background? Because Apple had this whole huge, what was it called? The big one. Do you remember what was that called? Apple, uh, Mr. Lakar Bhagga, uh, Vision Pro. Yeah, he says something like Ray-Ban Meta could replace smartphones. Yeah, so that's what people are saying. So they're saying that these Meta glasses, which enable you to see something and it's explaining everything to you, and you can control it with your eyes and voice and everything. It's gonna replace search. It's gonna replace how you interact with technology and so on and so forth. Sounds interesting. And Vision Pro is essentially a step in that direction, although it pales in comparison to what Facebook has visualized. The first company to actually think about this was Snapchat. Snapchat had a very big AR play, right? So Snapchat was the real pioneer when it came to this play, but it's fallen off course. I don't see Snapchat glasses being talked about a lot. In fact, even before Snapchat, the first person to actually have thought about this was Mr. Sergey Brin at Google. So Google glasses came much like in 2013 or something, right? They were obviously way ahead of their time, and now it's gonna happen. So my only concern is, right? Would we let technology get so close to us? Because smartphones itself are proving to be very big problems to us, right? People are actually buying dumb phones to get away from technology. They're actually buying touch-tone phones to get away from technology, right? People are fed up of continuous engagement with technology. Do you think they'll actually go away from smartphones and actually start wearing glasses, which is gonna make it even closer? That is a concern I have, but my guess is as good as anybody, right? But very good news for Meta, by the way. Moving on. Yes Bank is looking at wealth foray. Sumitomo Mitsui Banking Corporation is buying Yes Bank. So they're getting into the wealth management business. Wealth management business is a big business in India, right? Even though it's just in India, it's small, right? So just look at the numbers. Yes Bank is up against country's leading private banks. Kotak Mahindra and Axis Bank cumulatively manage $300 billion worth of assets, right? India, just 85,700 individuals have a net worth of over $10 million, right? $10 million. Assets under management at wealth firms is to double at more than $2.3 trillion between 23 to 2029. So 2023 to 2029, it's going to be $2.3 trillion, but 85,700 people with net worth of $10 million and plus. That's 80 crores, 88 crores now, 90 crores. So 85,100 people in this country with 90 crores of net worth. That's interesting. That's a very important number, by the way. I'm not, unfortunately, quite there yet. Are you? Moving on. Never too late, right? RBI governor asks clearing corp to think beyond dollar and rupee trade. It wants to internationalize rupee. That's the new ambition of the country, to internationalize rupee. That's very, very forward thinking and ambitious, right? So Clearing Corporation of India, CCIL, they want to actually think. So given the broader objective internationalization of Indian rupee, CCI could explore facilitating trade and settlement in other currency pairs like rupee yen, rupee yuan, and so on and so forth. Moving on. This is again a step in de-dollarization, right? Towards de-dollarization. Not good news for America. Not good news for America is not good news for India, or not good news for the financial ecosystem. Not good news for financial ecosystem is great news for what? I'll question again. Something which is not good for the global financial system is good news for what? You can take your time. I'm going to take a sip. Not good news for financial system is good news for what? So we're talking about rupee getting internationalized. Mr. Tiwari says Sona. Correct answer. If rupee gets internationalized and they're looking at trade with different currency pairs, essentially moving away from dollar would lead to havoc on dollar, which will essentially lead to havoc on financial ecosystem of the entire world. It'll lead to problems, but gold will be good. Moving on. Market strip on Chabar but ends week on high. Yeah, sure. India's forex reserve have crossed 700 billion. Treasury gains may weaken for banks in Q2. So this is very important. This is one of the complicated things, so listen very carefully. Treasury gains, which helped offset the impact of muted credit growth and boosted bank earnings, could well slow significantly in the second quarter amid rising yields and due to absence of open market operations. So what happens is, when RBI conducts, so open market operation is when RBI essentially buys. Okay. Now, the 10-year yield, which has softened to 6.25, rose to 6.6. So yield rose. The 10-year yield rose. What do you think happened to the bond price? What happens to the bond price when yield rises? Right? In the last quarter, it had come down to 6.25. It rose into 6.6 in the second quarter, which means the bond prices fell. Okay. Treasury yields are inversely related to bond prices. So hardening of yields adversely affects banks' investment earnings. So banks bought those bonds, their yields dropped. Right, the bonds became cheaper. Basically, their return on investment on bonds became a problem. Additionally, RBI did not conduct any open market operation in the second quarter. Right, in the first quarter, 2.4 lakh operation happened. Second quarter, nothing. So treasury gains in Q2 will be lower than Q1 for two reasons: higher yields and absence of OMOs. Now, when RBI conducts an OMO purchase, it buys government bonds, pushing their prices up and yields down. So RBI does an open market transaction where it buys government bonds, right? When it buys government bonds, the prices go up, yields go down, right? Banks that already hold those bonds, now the bank which already has that bond, right, can then sell that bond at a higher price and make money. Treasury money. That's called banking treasury money. So you have a bond, right? You want to sell that bond. Will you be able to sell that bond? When the bond prices go up. In other words, when the yield goes down, right? When will the price go up? When the government, or let's say RBI does an open market transaction. RBI doesn't do an open market transaction. The yield sort of rises up. Yield rises up, price goes down. You can't sell your bond, you don't make treasury money. So after a solid start, treasury gains may weaken for banks in Q2, which is slightly bad news for banking. Did you understand though? Could you understand? So banks have bought a bond. They want to sell that bond. They will only be able to sell that bond when its price rises. When its price rises, they'll be able to book treasury gains, but they won't be able to do that if price falls. Price will fall if the yield rises, and price will fall if the government doesn't, RBI doesn't hold an open market transaction. So very complicated, but much simplified, right? Pretty well simplified. I hope you liked it, the explanation. I hope it made you learn something. This brings us to the end of 118th episode of Thinker's Frequency. Sorry we got late, and sorry we took so much of time. Our daily mental workout, our daily dose of insights and analysis which don't lead to paralysis right before we punch in, comes to an end. I hope it added a lot of value to you. I hope it was fun. I'm sorry to have made you wait. Actually, I waited for 3-4 minutes. It's 9:20. We should punch in. I need to thank Mr. Patil, Mr. Raju Kumar, of course, Mr. Ashutosh Bhandekar, Mr. Tushar Tiwari, Mr. Lakar Bhagga, and everybody else for joining. I hope you had fun. I wish you a beautiful day personally and professionally. I'll see you tomorrow, same place, same time, hopefully. Take care. Bye bye.